Hey, how are
Crystal
you?
meth pipe. I've just had a crystal meth pipe, so I'm much better now.
Oh, good. That's really good.
Yeah, yeah. Four
So,
o'clock
hey,
in London.
it's what time is it here? It is 10 past 10 in the morning here.
Actually, it's 5:10 here. Yeah.
Uh, I'm Dwayne. It's my friend Monica. Monica's in London, England. I'm in Bragg Creek, Alberta, west of Calgary, and we're just chatting this morning about stuff. So, besides doing crystal meth,
Yeah.
uh, what's going on?
And a 3-hour yoga practice this morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And I've just been doing lots of walking out in the parks in London. It's just absolutely beautiful
Right.
at this time of the year.
Yeah.
So I've been enjoying that and just, living my life, living the dream
Living,
of the lockdown.
are you
Oh
living
yeah,
your best life though? Are you
I'm living
living?
my best. I'm constantly wondering, how can I live my life better than this?
So what's London like? Like, are you guys still in lockdown? Are there people in the street? Like what's happening?
It's always been a bit soft. It's never been a hard lockdown, not in central London anyway. The parks have always been open, and more people are basically using the park. So there's a lot of people around, but there's there's hardly any shops open, and you have to queue to get into them, and they it's still the social distance, and there's still the fair number of people wearing masks and whatnot. But I think the whole kind of drama is kind of fading a little here.
Right.
What about there where you are?
So here in this province, actually the premier announced very suddenly that they were opening things up yesterday, or starting to reopen some things. So they opened parks and a few public spaces and things like that about a week ago, and then yesterday there was this pronouncement that they were reopening most businesses in the province, and so except for Calgary and another community where I think there's still a high number of cases. So they're like, okay, except for I think it's like um, hairdressers and like places to get your hair cut or bars and restaurants, I think too. Anyways, they're delaying that for a week, reopening that for a week. But so I went in. I had to run into Calgary yesterday to. I run some errands, and it looked like pretty much normal. I had to go to the grocery
Oh,
store,
really?
and yeah, no, it was,
Mm.
and I actually noticed um, there was a little bit of edginess to people.
Is that good or bad?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure what the source is. I mean, you got to consider that people have been locked up for a couple of months. They felt very pent up. They've been really itching to get out, right, and go out. And I mean, in general, what I found during this whole thing, everywhere, is what we're seeing um, you're seeing the best in humanity and the worst in humanity. You're seeing the
Mm.
best in people and the worst in people. And yesterday, and I don't know if that's what I was paying attention to or not, but there was a woman in line honking her horn and the other woman telling her to fuck off. And, like, I was just like, wow, feeling the love.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anyways,
And yet
yeah.
other people are reacting in an entirely different way. I mean,
Right.
I think there's bad behavior on display and
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
behavior too.
Yeah, absolutely. So it kind of depends on your perspective and how you viewed this whole thing and I think you've handled sort of the last couple of months of being locked up in your house to a certain extent. So,
No,
yeah.
I mean, every morning when you wake up, you kind of have to make a decision how the day's going to roll, because you
Yes, you
you can
do.
say, okay, this is dystopian times, and you walk out there and everything's like the John Carpenter film They Live, and you're the one wearing the specs, or you have to imagine how you have to be on your best behavior. You choose to be what kind of level of behavior you meet this situation at.
Oh, I
I think
agree.
that's kind of like some kind of weird formula that I've gleaned so far. But so you were going to tell me about what happened with this thing that happened the other night.
Oh dear God. Yeah. So yeah, what's been going on for me? So the other night, I was up late and I was having a few drinks, and I was just being very sort of contemplative, and I was sitting alone in the dark, basically, just thinking about some stuff, and thinking I was going to fall asleep soon. And I went outside on my deck, and I live in a very rural area, so it's fairly dark outside. We have dark skies, and it's really quite beautiful. So I went out my deck and I looked up at the sky, and I happened to look up in the sky, and I saw this light going by, which I went, oh, there's a satellite, right? And then I fumbled for something, and I looked back up, and then I was like, oh no, it's not a satellite. It's a jet, because it's got different colored lights and flashy blinky lights, and it's that it's moving across the sky, and I was like, but then that's really low. That's really that's too low to be a jet. So what? And then I became aware that it was even lower in height, in elevation, than I originally thought. And then I thought, oh my God, it's a drone. Except at the same time, I'm like, there's no sound, and it's very, very quiet where I am, like dead silent. That night it was dead silent, and I'm like, okay, if it's a drone, it's a silent drone, and I'm a pretty logical, rational sort of person, and so my brain is looking for explanations as to what I'm seeing, and then it moves very quickly. It sort of changes direction, and I kind of notice, and then I become aware that whatever it is actually aware of me, and it's watching me, and I'm like, okay, what is this? And then I'm looking at the lights, and I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm actually seeing, and then all of the lights kind of blinked at once, and it was almost like it winked at me. And
like that,
right, and then it took off across the sky, again at a very high rate of speed, silently. And I mean, I'm standing on the deck going, what in the fuck is? And so then it disappears behind a tree, and I move to see sort of behind where it would have disappeared behind the tree, expecting to see its trajectory continue, and it vanished. It was gone. I mean, the whole thing took 20 seconds, the whole interaction. But it obviously wasn't a satellite, and it obviously wasn't a jet plane, and it obviously wasn't a drone. I mean, a drone doesn't move like that, nor does it move at sort of that rate of speed. And again, drones make sound. So yeah, I guess I saw something. And
so let me ask you.
Yeah.
If from a scale between 0 to 10, how freaked out were you straight away?
Freaked out?
Were you more freaked? Yeah, I mean, did your heart start beating faster? Were you hyperventilating, or how did you feel inside? And then what was your sort of freaked out level afterwards?
I mean, I think I was grasping for sort of some rational explanation, and it was, the interaction happened very fast. And when I had that moment of like, oh no, this thing is watching me, and there was like this, there was this awareness, this sort of shared moment of awareness, and then I get this little like blinky light action, and I'm like, what? So overall, how I felt, I mean, I would describe it as like shock and awe, and just like, what the fuck was that? Like, more than anything else, just a wonderment and curiosity, I guess. But yeah, no, I was so stunned, and again, it was late, and I was not what you sort of expected to see late at night, and so yeah, and so I mean, I've talked to people about it. You and I talked about it a little bit, and you know, it sounds like some level of classic, what they would call a UFO encounter.
As a close encounter.
Right.
I would rate that as a close encounter, because it came into your kind of like closer than normal. It wasn't just a whole bunch of lights a long way away that were doing something. It got more intimate. And
right. And if I sort of hypothesize of what I saw, and it was very high up, and it dropped down very, very quickly to again, and it was like, I guess because it saw me or sensed me or whatever, it was like up here, and it came down, and then it was like, we see you. Bye.
And after cacking your pants,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you're just left with just a tremendous, maybe, sense of awe.
Oh yeah.
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 I love that. I love that.
No,
that feeling, just being like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, you know, you and I talked. I messaged a couple of other people that are sort of in this community, because I'm not. I mean, it's not that I don't. I definitely believe there's enough compelling evidence to suggest that all of these encounters that have been documented. I mean, people aren't making them up. They're actually seeing things. I mean, there was that video that was released by the Pentagon. Finally, you know, sort of officially. Like, what are these things? So I definitely saw one of these what the hell was that sort of moments. And do I think it was random? No. Again, based
in what
on,
way? What do you mean when you say that?
I mean, I don't think it was a random experience. I think it was something that
Some sort of intention behind it?
I guess that there's some sort of message there, or I don't know, or you know, like sometimes these things I think happen because we just need to be reminded of something, and for me it was just this reminder.
Yeah, totally.
Of more than anything.
Remember to live in awe.
Exactly.
Remember to come at life like that.
Yeah.
If you can, those are the best moments.
Yeah. So yeah, that was and then, you know, talking to people about that and vibrating from that, and then you know, sort of that was the next 24 hours, and then you know, the following day just kind of like, because the energy was pretty high during that whole experience. So yeah.
Well, I mean, that's was a moon day, I think, as well, or quite close to the moon. It's new. I think it was a full moon.
No, not full.
Sure.
No, it wasn't a full moon, because the moon wasn't.
The new moon on the 22nd.
Oh, it's coming.
Oh, maybe it's
right.
a few days before that. Anyway, I got it wrong.
Yeah, so it's waning right now. So.
Right.
Yeah. But
yeah, I know that it's new on the 22nd at 5:40 p.m. GMT of May. So, because I just heard the astrology, right? But my prophecy is that this is the first. This is the first of many.
Oh God.
And yeah, maybe you're the eyes of the people in your neighborhood that are kind of like able to sort of step into that gray area between 3D reality and other stuff. You know me, I'm all about, you know, imagining that we can revivify the electromagnetic grid of the planet.
Right.
And my completely unjustified sort of hope, dream is that somehow if we can communicate, interact with nature, and I would call the I would call what you had, it's got this overlap with the paranormal. So I'm not assuming that there's these guys coming in metallic ships
No.
from outer planets, other planets. And yeah, I'm just saying that, like I would sort of like say that there's a lot of overlap between the paranormal and altered states of consciousness and areas on the planet which are very so the locals say these are kind of common experiences in some parts of the world. And perhaps they are more common than we realize, because we haven't been looking up at the sky for so long, because we're living in cities, we can't see a proper dark sky anyway. But more and more people are looking up at the sky, and so and they're using these night vision goggles and all this other technologies to see things, and so they're noticing stuff. But whether it's all little green men in spacesuits, and I don't think that kind of really matters. So I kind of like,
No.
I'm interested in where you saw what you saw, and I'm like interested in like where are the mountains, where are the rivers, where are the natives of that land, if there are still, what do they think about it? That's where that experience that you just relayed takes me.
Right.
I'm thinking about that. I'm wondering whether the natives have would just brush that off and just say, hey, haha, we know all about that stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, there is a native band that lives very close to here.
Yeah.
But I don't have. It's not like they've got a website where they publish stuff. You know what I mean? So yeah. So yeah, no, but I agree with you, and I think that there's a lot of truth to that sort of reconnection to the ground, reconnection to the earth, reconnection to source, or whatever, that a lot of people have been experiencing during this lockdown. And that's one of the positive side effects I think we're going to see moving forward, but that's a whole long other conversation. Yeah, no, it was, I mean, all in all, it was pretty cool. It kind of wakes you up, and you're like, wow, what was that all about? And
that's like a big wake up call.
Yeah. So,
but you're pretty tuned in to stuff like that anyway. I mean, I've noticed that about you. You kind of got some kind of your body's monitoring things on quite a sort of a visceral level with regard to what's going on in the big natural environment in Canada. I saw you in action last year.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, you're seeing things in nature I'm just not seeing.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess I am to a certain extent. I mean, that's been an interesting thing too about this time during the lockdown, because I've run the gamut between feeling quite tuned in and sort of up to being feeling very, very closed off and shut down and isolated, like I'm sure a lot of other people have. But I think it's good to be conscious of that stuff, but sometimes we also got to just let things happen how they will. And there's a flow, right? There's a flow to things. Sure. And for me, and you and I have talked about this before, I think that's one of the most important things that we can do is kind of allow for everything to happen. And I think there are lots of people who want significant peak experiences to happen, you know what I mean? And so then you can go looking for those things, certainly, but the most important thing, but we don't have those experiences all the time. So I think the most important thing is just to sort of allow for the flow.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And timing, like sometimes time is just going to do things, not, you can be in a flow, but sometimes you know, like the writer who died recently a few years ago that I really admired, John Anthony West, talked all about ancient Egypt. He made this analogy that, you know, like when it's time, you know, like the era that we're in, the yuga that we're in, you know, where it's just kind of like it's. He was referring to perhaps a few years prior to this moment in time, but you know, he was saying, you know, when it's time to plant roses, you know that it's the right time. You don't plant roses in autumn.
Right.
You know, there's a timing aspect to life that, you know, also collectively we're living through you know, a synchronized, a group timing right now.
Yeah.
But
An unprecedented one.
yeah, an unprecedented, absolutely unprecedented one. So, and we don't know what to do about, you know, like we don't have a manual about how to navigate this stuff. But I think certainly I'm finding, and maybe you know, other people around me are sort of commenting to me about like things are happening in a way that they hadn't hitherto happened because of many factors, but also this thing where we're not directed to a whole kind of routine of survival type activities. We're off that schedule, so perhaps we're actually starting to pay more attention to the things, you know, other, you know, like the nature, the space in between things. We've got more time. We've got more. Perhaps we've got a little bit more quiet time. We've got a little bit more opportunity to see what's going on in our heads. We've got to. Some people are gonna, you know, split up with their spouses
Oh yeah.
at the end of this.
Oh yeah.
You know, because of the crucible type atmosphere of confinement.
Yeah.
And other people are kind of like realizing, you know, there's just lots of other things going on that they hadn't considered before. I would say I'm certainly feeling that too. So although it's a very strange time, I think that to me, this is a huge opportunity. I don't know more than that, but I just think it's just a kind of a huge opportunity. And especially, I'm going to say, economically, even though the planet is going to be, it is very close to the brink of economic disaster, which I can't see them backpedaling on. It would just be more padding around the, you know, just patching things up. But
Yeah.
honestly, there are. I just see it's a difficult time, but there's also a lot of opportunity. So if we can orientate ourselves inside of that, it's perhaps a lot less scary.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean that subject is near and dear to my heart. This whole thing about this economic mess and this doom and gloom and this whole scenario.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go on and on and on ad nauseum about this subject, but you know, we have to remember that before this happened, there was another crisis that was sort of coming to the forefront of you know, humanity's future as a species, and that was the fact that we've you know, climate change, global warming, whatever, but just the sort of net effect that we've had on our environment and the way that we've treated our environment and how much disregard we've had for everything at the you know, all in the name of progress, all in the name of capitalism, you know, whatever ism, whatever ideology you want to subscribe to, whatever political bent. We've done a lot of damage to the planet, and the bills for that are coming to due. And if we don't start to reverse that tide significantly, we're going to, and by all intents and purposes, we're already seeing the beginning of it. We're going to see some very, very serious fucking problems, man.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
there was existential angst going on in the world about that before this happened, and then this sort of happened.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so when we get into sort of the discussion about the economy and all that kind of stuff, I think we're only seeing the beginning points of the pain, the financial pain of this event. Again, unprecedented human history. That's never been like it on a global scale. The whys and wheres and wherefores of it. It's going to be an opportunity, like you said, to do something, to reevaluate things, and perhaps look at doing things a little bit differently moving forward.
Or a lot differently.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there needs to be drastic change. You mentioned something earlier. You were talking about what we were paying attention to, and you mentioned earlier that you did a 3-hour yoga practice earlier today, and that's something that you've been working with me on. Again, I've been back on the mat after eating my way through my lockdown, eating and drinking my way through the lockdown. I kind of went, I could probably be using this time a little bit more productively. So, but you're talking about listening, and the one thing that is so very, very important, and I know this is a big part of your life, is listening to your body and listening to your breath and that level of awareness. So yes, there's an awareness of nature, but this is also an opportunity to begin to listen to our bodies in a very, very good
Yeah. Oh, totally. Can you bring the microphone a little bit closer to you so I can hear?
Is that better?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, you know, I've been teaching yoga for well over 20 years. It is my wheelhouse to practice yoga. I mean, it's funny because I'm enjoying practicing for myself more than ever. I would, you know, I wonder how many people would discover that too along the way. I mean, I always enjoyed doing it, not because I was obsessed, you know, I was kind of OCD from the word go, kind of born like that, you know.
Not
yeah,
you.
I know, surprise. So, but you know, it's something that I've always, you know, I'm just one of those people. I'm, you know, just kind of always very physically orientated, and so, you know, but what I've noticed with this lockdown is that I'm kind of I'm listening more. I'm having like a dialogue, like a new layer of dialogue with myself, with my body, and with my mind, as if, despite the fact that there's all these connotations attached to the language is negative around this situation, lockdown, confinement, stay safe,
quarantine,
which I can't help hearing when they say stay safe is stay afraid.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
you know, there's all these things, but actually inside every day, I'm feeling a lot of spaciousness, a lot of liberation. I'm feeling I'm having a better communication with myself, with my body. I feel kind of somewhat liberated by this. The fact that I don't have to do anything, to maybe get up out of the bed to pee rather than in the bed with me, stuff like that. But apart from that, I find it's just, I'm just having all sorts of epiphanies, and I'm feeling more connected to humanity, you know, in parentheses, usually before they open their mouth, but you know what I'm saying. I'm feeling more of a connection to humanity, and a deepening of that. And lots of contrast, man. You know, like, even though it's kind of got all these psychological bars around it, and the flames of hell creeping up under the floor of the cage, I still feel actually like there's a lot of light coming in. I feel like there's something kind of like that's been waiting to in the background, and it's sort of like a perfume. We're starting to sense it aurically. It's coming into our aura, and it feels like it's rather pleasant and a long time overdue. It's a kind of like more of a kind of a feminine
Oh,
aspect,
definitely.
you know.
Definitely. We watched that video. I shared that video with you of that interview with that guy, Dr. Zach. What was
Yeah.
his- I can't remember his last name now. Anyways, he talked a lot about, or some of the conversation they were talking about the virus, and then his thing is these viruses are upgrades and that sort of stuff. But he talked very, very specifically about sort of the rise of the idea of the divine feminine, and that speaks to kind of that return to nature, return to source, return to elements of creativity, and all those kinds of things that have been sort of squelched or suppressed, or put, or we don't seem to value as much in our day-to-day society right now, but are very real parts of very important parts of what should be important parts, certainly to me, about how we exist on this planet. We're not just here to consume.
Right. Totally. Yeah. That's the problem with so much. What I have trouble with is that we're just like we see the way things have been set up. Psychologically, we're just and in our conditioning, in our social conditioning, we're just consuming. I mean, how many people are bona fide creators?
Right.
Most people are just consumers.
Right.
And that's just all wrong. And so, I mean, maybe there are these the scales are sort of tipping, and this this influence, this natural balancing is coming through now, and I want us to kind of jump on that.
Oh, I agree, and I think that there have been signs of positive signs of growth of some of this stuff that's been happening quietly behind the scenes, and sort of a very grassroots level. It's very, very difficult to pick up the threads of this because it's not being reported widely, because it's not news, right? What sells clicks and newspapers or whatever is the political shitstorm, fear, anxiety, the crazy shit that's going on out there in the world. That's what keeps people glued to sort of
fear porn.
Yeah, exactly. It is literally a type of pornography. It's about feeding fear and anxiety. And but there's this other side that if you go looking for it, and you do have to look. Sometimes you have to look kind of hard. You can actually find very, very positive signs of things that are occurring, that are opportunities to rethink what we're doing.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think that there's actually that's the thing I think is interesting about right now, and that what I was saying about, like, you open your eyes in the morning, you kind of make a decision. One of those decisions is where you're going to put your attention. In the day, what you like, because it can be, it's easy to put your attention on to all of the what they call fear porn, the bad news, but there are things there that are happening, and that we're seeing, and that we're experiencing, that are good news. If you want to, I mean, it's a bit of a false sort of dichotomy to say it's good or bad or whatever, but there's other things going on in the world still. Where I can't remember who it was that told me this, but since the lockdown, apparently the seismic activity on the planet has gone right down, simply because human beings aren't
moving around as much,
moving around doing their thing so much. And so, like, I don't know how it works with the seismic the Earth's crust, and the seismic activity is kind of like calmed right down. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Oh yeah. Well, it's certainly another sign. There's a bunch of other factors that have interesting things that have changed. For me, I've really noticed, even where I live, where the air is typically like, it's not London here. Let's not kid ourselves. But the air here is usually fairly clear compared to a city like London or Tokyo or New York City or places like that. But even still, having grown up in this region, I've noted as an adult that the air is different. It's not as clean and clear, certainly, as it was that I remember when I was a kid. And is that just old age? I don't think so. I think we're actually seeing a delta. But I can tell you the number of crystal clear days that we've had here during this crisis when we're driving and stuff. It was so tremendous, and it's like, wow. I mean, I went on a hike one day, and we hiked up this old ski hill, and the city is 35 kilometers away, and we were sitting on the side of this mountain, and we could see the city skyline and make out buildings that, again, that level of clarity I haven't seen since I was a kid, which was a long time ago. Can
you imagine in places like Los Angeles?
Oh,
where they never see the skyline.
No, I know, and I have friends in LA, and they've been commenting too how I think I saw something that said the air clarity has not been as good in Los Angeles since the end of the Second World War.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Yeah.
So,
because I remember being in the Morengo Valley up by Palm Springs, and at a certain time of the day, you could see the smog coming in, rolling in, all that way inland, and it was like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I know,
that was Los Angeles pollution rolling by.
Yeah.
So
crazy.
That's I note that I like that for the planet. And I'm a big fan of Mother Earth. What can I say?
Yeah.
But in that regard, when it comes to sort of like, I guess I'm thinking about flow again, and I'm thinking like, at some point things are going to sort of pick up again, and then what is one's intention around that? I mean, because I think for a lot of people, maybe some people at least are kind of assuming that this all ends and then we just go back to the way things were. and I just don't, I kind of worries me, because I don't want to be, for years I was looking at, the world going, this can't go on forever. This cannot go on forever. Ranting. And then one day it stopped. So there's a part of me that's kind of just thinking, I don't want to go back to that. So like, if we're here now and things are happening, hopefully some of them good, and that we are in this flow, how are we going to take, if we are invited to do so, according to this situation as an opportunity, how are we going to take that into the future? What are we going to do about that?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
It's one of the big questions, and that's like, I always look at it and say, what kind of world do you want to live in? What kind of world do you want your children to inherit? What do you want the future to look like? And I think again, getting back to the fact that we talked about earlier, that people are so busy, and we're so distracted with our, our busy little lives, getting up, getting the kids to school, going to work, riding the train, all that kind of stuff. We sort of just take a lot of what the experience that we have at face value and say that's just the way things are. But when we have the opportunity to sit down and really sit with and evaluate things, which a lot of people have had the opportunity to do that recently, and say, well, okay, that's the way it was. How do we want it to look? What do we want it to look like moving forward? What kind of can we even sit with some level of imagination, if you will, or creativity, and begin to think, quote unquote, outside of the box, of a lot of the,
which is now transformed into a triangle. It's no longer a box.
It's no longer a box. Yes. Yeah. So.
Yeah. But so what do we want to keep? And what are we afraid of leaving behind? And is some of that or all of that better left behind? I mean, I'm not into heal, we've got to heal this trauma. There's a lot of stories and shit going on, and okay, whatever. But I think, I think it's fairly useful-ish question that I'm asking myself, which is, what can we actually leave behind or reframe or look at again? That is to do with our ties to the past, which I think are important for us to examine. Don't get me wrong. But does this situation enable us to step out of perhaps some of our habits of identifying ourselves as victims of one form or another, victims of a slave economy, victims of family dysfunction, victims of
Abrahamic religions, patriarchy,
religion, blah, 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 blah.
The list goes on.
Can we get off that shit? Or are we going to keep that going anytime soon?
I think it's very, very important for us. And that's one of the things I find so frustrating with some of the truther sort of community and some of these things that come out, is that although there's elements of truth that they are speaking, as soon as we get into the dialogue of saying, well, it's us against them, or they, or there's this other force, these unseen forces, or deep states, or all these other kinds of things, we've basically put things into a box, and again, we painted ourselves as victims. We are victims of this, and
someone else is to blame,
right? And that takes away our personal responsibility, our accountability, and our power. And that, philosophically, I know you and I are aligned in a lot of things. And one of the things that we've talked about before is, do you happen to life, or does life happen to you? Right? And if you are a little bit more in a victim mentality, you believe that that's where that sort of comes from. Whereas people who are, I guess, not judging, but people have a different view to say, no, I happen to life. I manifest reality. I can be the change I want to see in the world, and that's not, I need to change all of these other people, or I need to vote for somebody else. What I need to focus on is me. I need to change me.
Yeah.
I need to change my vibration, right?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's both. I think where life is happening to us and we're happening to life, that is a kind of that's where we as human beings and our personalities are woven into form at that, in that commingling. I don't think it's I don't think it's think, imagine. You can create your own imagination. Da, da, da. No, the universe is mind, but it's so much more complicated than now I mind and now I'm gonna make this happen. You know, we're subject to, you know, history and the moments in life where, you know, like we went in the late 50s from a kind of quite a, you know, post-war kind of slightly prudish traditional nuclear family kind of society, and then bam, 60s happened. You know, there was the hippie phase, like, you know, you could ignore it, but then there was this thing that was happening that if you were young enough, you maybe would have been participating in. So, like, you know, you can get on that boat if you want to. You know, that life, you know, there are things happening to us, but that doesn't, it's not the same. That's not the equivalent of saying that we're a victim of it. I think that really it's like on a bad day, I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, the universe is my enemy, and it doesn't mean any of us well. And then other days I'm thinking, you know what I was thinking the other day, that's just such bollocks. And now I'm like, it's just so not black or white. It's like, this is it's a play. You know, it's we're kind of characters kind of playing out this thing on behalf of perhaps a higher intelligence, but we're certainly not and it's certainly not that we are like that God is some, or, you know, like some higher power has kind of got it in for us to kind of like make us have an experience which is going to be full of pain and suffering and struggle, at least not right now. I think that there's far more kind of wriggle room for other experiences as we kind of, I mean, I think that somehow we're just thinking differently to previous generations. We're just seeing the world differently, you know. So everything's changed in such a short space of time, at least in my lifetime, in our lifetime. You know, now is that leading us to some sort of Armageddon? Yeah, hell yeah. No, not really, but it's a bit like that sometimes. But you know, I don't think it's necessarily one. I mean, I think that's where I come with it, is if we are able to live with contrast, that there's a lot of things happening, you know, all the time, and we're not expecting it all to kind of like go one way or the other, like the whole of life is going in my favor all the bloody time, or it's not going in my favor all the time. Like, but there's this kind of like contrast.
Flow.
Yeah. This is happening. You know, like life is happening all the time, and you know, we can habitually kind of get in the way and feel blocked. Then we're not flowing, you know. And so the you know, I think that it is somewhat of a mental discipline right now, because you know, like I think right now it's our opportunity as sort of an invitation to sort of like make a decision about how you want to be.
So
because we're not subscribed by so many things that we have been before.
Right.
You know.
So to bring it down to a personal level, and to, you know, because we can talk at very high levels, very abstract sort of community, global sort of base, but to bring it down to a personal level, what are some things that that you do um, for yourself, by yourself, or whatever, or with others, how do you bring yourself when you're feeling jumped out of, you're not in the groove? How do you bring yourself back to flow?
It depends what I need. It depends on what is kind of bubbling up. Like I try not to
Sure.
necessarily even look for to identify what it is that's going on.
Right.
Like sometimes it can feel like an emotion or a tension or a particular part of my body, and I mean, I think that you get better at anticipating, like if when things are starting to collapse and you're moving out of flow state, and sometimes that collapse is necessary.
Right.
Sometimes you've got to actually just go to the bathroom or whatever and just cry your eyes out, or be in the queue, waiting for the, in the line for the supermarket or whatever you need. Sometimes you need to go there, but sometimes, like I can feel, sometimes I just need to cry, and it's just kind of like a release of energy. And sometimes I just put on some really loud, heavy, dark music, and I just start to move.
So
I mean,
movement.
I do
movement.
Dancing. Yeah. I mean, if it feels really like I can be practicing yoga and like if it doesn't feel right, I'll remembering I've been doing this for a long time, so kind of pick up sort of when I'm feeling like I'm not really in the flow. I'll just put on some kind of music that I've got an emotion attached to, and I'll put it on. I'll just start moving. I'll just start dancing. I'll just start moving my feet, lifting my feet off the ground, moving my arms and shaking, and just getting the chi moving. And I might even run around my lockdown space, run up and down the stairs of my basement flat. Whatever I need to just, like kind of puke it out, swearing as if I've had, a bout of Tourette's, whatever. I mean, I think it's about expressing it, because the last thing you want to do is repress it. I mean, I think that we're all basically okay inside. We just need to get rid of shit. At the fundamental level, we're okay. Sometimes things happen and we get blocked, and then what are you going to do about it? What do you have any techniques?
Techniques. I mean, things that I know that I've managed to maintain some level of meditation practice, and do I think that do I meditate and then afterwards go, oh my God, I feel so much better? No, not necessarily. It doesn't always work like that, but it is something that I actually look forward to, because I do go inward. I do listen a lot. I listen to my body. It just changes my level of awareness and my consciousness, if you will, for a few minutes every single day. And I just think that sort of cumulatively, that's a very important practice for me. I know it helps me with stress and anxiety and those kinds of things. So that meditation's one. Like you, music, art. I noticed that there have been times when I have spent I've had a lot of screen time, shall we say, and I feel kind of gross as a result. And so staying off social media and not listening to news, not listening to mass media. I don't give a fuck about Donald Trump or, Boris Johnson or whatever sort of, again, the program, the fear and anxiety porn, staying away from that, going outside, walks in nature. And I'm lucky because of where I live. It's a more of a remote place, so I've had lots of access to go outside. and just listen to birds and look at
Yeah.
clouds and see animals and things like that. And that really changes your state.
Yeah.
Reading,
Yeah.
there's any host of sort of entertainments that can help you sort of change your state, like, and certainly, I'm going to bring this up again, is the yoga thing. So some level of physical activity, some sort of concentrated focus
Totally.
on your body, takes you out of your head again, makes you, puts you back in sort of here.
Yeah.
Is such a huge thing, and that's why.
One of the other things that I love is chanting.
Yeah.
Chanting mantras. It can be mentally. You can just say that mentally.
Yeah.
Say a mantra mentally to yourself as you're walking. Silent meditation, holding particular mental sound repeated.
I do that at the market all the time. It's something like, holy fuck, do I hate these people? No, I'm kidding.
Repeat it again and again and again.
Yes.
Holy fuck, do I hate these people? Holy fuck, do I hate these people?
I can't wait to get home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home.
No,
I'm
totally.
kidding. Sort of kidding. Somewhat. Anyways. So
no, definitely the yoga is a complete and utter lifesaver. I've said this a gazillion times, but for me, that yoga as a practice, when I'm teaching people, if I can remember, I will say to them, forget about your health insurance policy. Yoga could be the best health insurance policy you've ever had.
Right. And what's that phrase that you use sometimes, that yoga is
Oh, yeah. Well, the way I'm concerned, I have some concerns about, like over the years, I've been watching how yoga has become $1 billion industry.
Yeah.
And, gone from some kind of pathway of self-realization, self-mastery to, get a six-pack and, work your butt hard and shit like that. But to me, sorry.
No, it's become an industry. It's become a business.
Yeah, it's an industry. It's about the clothing. It's about the yoga studio. It's about following
this certain teacher,
peers,
this certain school, and
teacher training, workshops.
You speak
retreats,
a certain way.
Detox. Just totally, like, whoa. So it's not really my cup of tea.
No.
And but I love it, and I've got quite a few yoga buddies, but just not it's still an industry, and actually it's still people are people. But when I look at yoga and I think about how like where we could go with yoga, I talk about like it's like yoga is like a set of tools, like in like a Swiss Army knife,
right?
Like a toolkit.
Yeah.
And you've got like, you can pull this side and it's like it's a toothpick, that's handy, and like a corkscrew, and the scissors and a little saw and a can opener, like depending on how elaborate it is. And what I'm interested in is all of those tools, all of those things are ways of creating skilling yourself up. With all of this is huge potential. Yoga is a way of expanding into some sort of potential,
Yeah.
And what we seem to be doing with it right now is just using it with the toothpick bit to clean your teeth.
Well, I
Whereas
think
we could get that saw out and build a fucking house.
yeah, I know, and I think I would agree with you that it's. I think because there's there's sort of a marketing side to the industry, and there's sort of expectations that people sort of have, that yoga means this or this. But when I started working with you, um, uh, and you have talked about this stuff before, and certainly I really responded to your approach because it wasn't quite the like, oh, the breathy sort of like asparagus people or whatever. But you're very real and grounded. And when I started it, very, very quickly, just as a matter of doing it with you, you become aware of breath, you become aware of your body. For me, nutrition started to come into it very, very quickly because I was paying more attention to my body. I noticed when I did yoga after I ate certain things, my body was different. And I'm like, what's that? So like you said, there's this whole sort of yoga has a potential to open up so many different facets that go beyond just feeling zen and having and being very fit and
go and have a smoothie, go and
yeah,
consume more, like we were saying right at the beginning. We're consuming yoga,
yeah,
how about we become co-creators of yoga? How about we become we use yoga to be more fully who we actually are, to discover who we actually are, rather than a notion of how we're supposed to be told to us by a a spurious guru. I mean, does that sound like a good idea to anyone? How about some self-empowerment? Is that anyone up for that? Anyone up for a little bit of creating a life that they, like bringing the best of themselves out, and yet knowing, that none of us are perfect? How about we get off worrying about whether we're going to have, using yoga as a sort of a way of addressing symptomatically the dysfunction within the core threads of the way that we live our life right now in this hiatus, kind of stepping away from, can we cut some of those threads and pull it back to who we are and actually say, well, I don't know, I mean, maybe I don't need to do that. Maybe if I stop listening to all this other crapola, I might actually find that I'm all right with who I am.
right, yeah.
And yoga as a skill is a massive, huge skill that means that you're going to get healthier, you're going to get more balanced, your posture's going to get corrected, your hormonal system is going to get corrected, you're going to get better waking time, more clarity, you're going to sleep better, you're going to have better relationship with yourself, and you're going to have better relationships with others, all in different ratios according to who you are and where you're at in your moment in life. So obviously I'm not, there's not a magic bullet here.
I'm still waiting for the have better relationships with others part. No, I'm just kidding. I'm only kidding. But yes, no, definitely all of the above. I mean, obviously. For me,
but it's. I mean, I can only say that it's never been in my head to practice yoga for this kind of like narcissistic motivations in order to get I mean, I don't have an Instagram account, so I don't know, but I guess I'm going to have, after being on the sidelines for 25 years, maybe I should have an Instagram account by now.
Maybe it's time you start stepping out, and I know that that's part of what we're doing here today, is you know, we're both sort of practice. This is practice for us both. Recording this video.
We're showing our faces.
Yeah, we're showing our faces because we need to step out into because you know you have a very unique voice, and I think it's very easy for people like you to get drowned out by sort of the you know, the popular sort of
The machine.
mass machine, and there is one within the yoga community, just like there is everywhere else. And so that's
Sure.
that's been a part of what we're doing. So I'm going to I get a split, so I'm going to wrap this up.
All right.
But this was a good start. I think there's lots of topics that we want to come back to and talk to a lot more.
Got a ton of topics. And I'm sure you have too. We can find plenty to talk about.
We talked on the phone the other day for 3.5 hours. Yeah, so we covered a lot of.
We've never had trouble. We've never had trouble chatting about shit.
No, so we're going to try and do this on a more of a regular basis. Again, just as practice, but also it helps us sort of get some stuff out that I think needs to be said.
For sure. I mean, every few days, I've got some kind of beef that I want to, talk about. So I don't know whether you're like that, but I mean, there's always stuff coming up. But yeah, it's a good start.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Well.
So thank you.
Thank you.
And I'll see you maybe tomorrow. I'll text you.
Yeah, let me know.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. See ya. Bye.